The figure of the other girl appeared in the pool of blood. The other girl revealed half of her face. Her red eyes stared at Wild. The girl said to the other person, has approached the target, the black-scaled faceless man. Frank Wild. The target currently conducting the ritual has not yet been identified. The girl looked at Wild's back in the distance. The person on the other side replied, very good. Just solve it quickly when you attack. The other girl was wearing a cool black outfit, carrying 3 red medicine jars at her feet. The other person said, by the way, Wang Erd was entertaining a commoner just now for no reason. How do you plan to deal with this man? The girl's remaining eye flashed red. While Lin Ji was sitting outside drinking tea, the girl replied, this is not within the scope of my consideration. No, there's no need to bother. I've always aimed straight at the target. As always, I just need to quietly poison myself. And I'll be done with these 2 things. The girl raised her hand and touched it 3 times. A bottle of medicine at my feet. The person on the other side asked, can I kill it? A giant appeared. Saying it was a human is not right. Because that guy had a human body but his face was not. That figure was huge, holding an axe in his hand. Someone raised his voice, said, Helix should have used the mirror egg to summon the god-level dream beasts that the organization requested. And he himself would have relied on this to take over the Scarlet Cult. To unite the large and small hunter organizations. Becoming less tools for the organization. Wild's figure with his snakes hovering around. The other snake stuck out its tongue as if warning those who touched it. Wild. The other voice said, but why is Wild involved in this? The White Wolf and the Scarlet Cult are endlessly connected. And Helix died on the spot. His body is currently unknown. The clothes are still there. The arm fell in a pool of blood. A spider was engraved with characters in a hexagon. Finally, the merger of the hunter forces unexpectedly turned into a new hunter organization. Ji Jishu's figure smiled, a long flower wrapped around her arm. She is currently the leader of the strongest hunter leader right now. The organization's arrangement for many years just ended like that. Someone's hand clutched a piece of paper. The girl sitting on the table heard the other person say, from a series of actions after Wild reappeared. It can be seen that he acted on some instructions. Shadow, the other person, stood and explained to the girl, no matter who is behind all this, the organization will find him in the future. And now what we need to do is eliminate the guy who stands in Helix's way. A thing, something white surrounded by black substances. A black arm lifted the girl's face. The other person's shadow gradually appeared. The head was white. The other half of the body was black with the face blind in one eye. The other guy raised the girl's face and said, you can now freely fly in both reality and the shadow world. Your ability to move and hide is far superior to insects that use magic like transfiguration. That lowly thing. The girl with a slightly red face looked at the man in front of her. The man said, but the price you have to pay is just to endure the pain that penetrates your soul when entering the shadow world. The other person likes psychological manipulation, whispering in the girl's ear, but as long as the noble purpose of the organization can be fulfilled, all sacrifices are worth it. Just a little basic pain cannot be moved. Our will, in order to help you complete your tasks and record information, I have transferred your right eye to you. The nerve in the eye is connected to your brain, through which we can read each other's thoughts. Saw that a new eye had grown above the girl's eye. The girl blushed and silently listened to the other person say, because I value and trust you. I volunteered. Sacrifice. For you no matter what. Everything is worth it. Those who stand in the way of the organization must die. Countless machines appeared behind the girl. The black shadow touched the girl's face. Just let if Wild comes into contact with this apocalyptic sound. His end will definitely be tragic. The apocalyptic sound will merge his thoughts with Wild's brain. First, he will slowly feel it under his skin. There are ants crawling on his head. This feeling will gradually penetrate from the scalp into the cortex of the brain. Then the gray matter, the medulla, the extreme itching will destroy his will. The other person said word by word, next he will start scratching. Tearing my scalp. Crushing my skull bones, finally taking out the brain that is already full of jagged wounds. Until now he liberated, and you must let me witness that outcome with my own eyes. Can you do that? The girl's lips opened and moved. The girl blushed. The girl held the other person's black hands with a loving smile and replied, it's an honor. No matter what tragedy I have to face, I am also willing to personally destroy those who stand in the way of the organization. Wild must die. Now the girl is cold and trembling in the water tank, covering her mouth with her hand and wants to vomit. The girl looks miserable. The girl's eyes looked at the bleeding blood and the scary things in front. But she couldn't stop thinking about the horror in front of her. Trembled, yet used such cruel tricks to set up a sacrificial altar. The girl thought of the black back of Wild, the black-scaled faceless man. Truly a destruction-level dark mages destroys. Makes people afraid and can make children stop crying at night. On this side the cloth finger flashed with light. Wild said, "These impurities go away." Wild spread his arms, his whole body full of joy, thinking, the effect is still as good as ever. It's worthy of transmission-level magic theory that existed in the age of mythology. Right, the spell at an exorbitant price I bought from the White Witch's apprentice at first. Now it seems like I can make a lot of money. Recalls Wild at that time bought a trunk for a huge amount of money from someone. Wild picked up a lock of his white hair to smell it and said, "It has a floral scent." Wild thought, I have to talk to Boss Lin later. You must maintain your appearance and dress properly. Wild's shirt stood in this dirty place without a trace of blood on it. The shirt was shining. Wild said, honestly, absorbed I was immersed in the beautiful ceremony. So I kept Boss Lin waiting for a long time. I wonder if he will blame me. The figure of Wild's shirt disappeared. A black liquid flowed underground in silence. The girl holding the red liquid in her hand with a perverted smile said, "It will kill me." Roll call rang out, Nemo. Yes. Mahat. Yes. Then called the name of the one-eyed blind girl, Deborah. The girl replied, yes. Lucio. Yes. Phelan. Yes. The voice of that shadow said, good. Now forget all your names. From now on only each person's code can represent your identity. Listen carefully. You are the purest assassins trained by a special organization. That light bulb raised his hand to look at a group of people standing below. Your value in this life is only to do a good job. Tool and became the sharpest blade. So you still do not have the right to know the identity of our organization. The black shadow stood on a high platform. And the other platform had a picture of a sword and a top printed on it. Fire. The black shadow opened his arms and said, just always engrave the symbol of the organization in your heart and devote yourself. Remember, only when you have achieved enough achievements will you have the opportunity to become famous. Nature of the organization, a group of people with colorful hair standing below, each wearing a cloak shaped like a sword and flame. One person's hand holding tightly. Listening to the black person above say, those people standing here alive. You have all undergone cruel training over the years. Your bodies have been transformed into half-human, half-shadow creatures, able to unleash your hidden abilities. Maximum. The black figure opened his mouth and asked, after going through these things, do you have any resentment towards the organization in your hearts? Deborah was the one who shouted the loudest along with her accomplices, never will. We only have gratitude in our hearts. The other black figure heard the crowd chanting again and continued, that's right. Remember all of the things that the organization does for you. You are forced to accept as normal. You should all be proud to be able to devote some of your energy to the organization. Right, remember how strong and noble the organization is. The man in black stretched out his arms and shouted, the number of tools serving the organization. What a face and the path that as long as we keep moving forward with justice and light. That shadow turned into a giant shadow looking at the crowd, as a member of the organization. You do not have to be afraid of the Force's other super products. Those people who carry the name of powerful superhumans are nothing more than ordinary people. Trying to raise their heads before we officially appeared. Just dry bones in the graves. When the group of people heard that, everyone had a happy smile on their face. That black shadow cast a long shadow like vines looking at them. The other figure hovering above said, remember, on our way forward. Enemies are scattered everywhere. One day we will have to confront the whole world. But our cause is absolutely right. And in the end we will definitely win. To win. For this world is a challenge. The figure of the other person was like a bat flying in the sky shouting, for completing this noble goal. Even though you have being destined to work in silence. Also being willing to volunteer. Dedicating one's life to the organization. Being obedient. Volunteering. Becoming small pieces in the process of exploring the world. Is what the value of your life. The black figure flashed red, all suffering is because of sacrifice for a great cause. Including death. The dirty black man's arm was so tall, it's all about the organization. A stream of alternating white. Red and black light flew in the sky. A black man standing on a high platform heard the crowd below chanting in unison, "For the organization. For the organization. For the organization. Organization. For the organization." Countless hands were raised accompanied by chants of, "For the organization. For the organization." Those arms were raised high. And then all of those arms were handcuffed by thick chains. All of them were put into test tubes. They were tied tightly in that test tube, attached to countless electric wires, and stood still for scientists to comment and evaluate them like now slaves, lifeless experimental subjects. Then there will be dead people being cruelly dragged away. Every day so many experimental subjects die and are dragged away like a commodity. Successful experimental subjects were put to the test by those scientists. For example, Deborah. They conducted an experiment with countless scientists. They said, "The experimental subject has woken up. Please confirm the conscious state of the test subject. Good conscious state. Please conduct the RX-77 command test. Comply with the submersion mission instructions." Everything in front of Deborah's eyes seemed to be a blur, remaining black. Then the word, "clear," rang out. One of Deborah's arms gradually blurred and turned into black sea foam. Then the girl's silhouette seemed to sink into the darkness. Deborah seemed to fall into the abyss. Double the girl's eyes opened wide. Deborah's scream rang out loudly, "Ah!" Deborah trembled, looking at her arm, thinking, was that feeling of pain left over just now? Deborah looked at his whole body surrounded by countless black things, thinking, this kind of extreme pain that seems to tear the heart apart. After all, at this moment a black figure covered Deborah's body. The person of color, the other black figure, appeared and smiled and said, "Finally, there is an individual who can endure the pain without going crazy and committing suicide." Deborah sat and watched silently, listening to the other shadow say. The other shadow said, "Kind of the new experiment of reusing this shadow world finally produced a product that did not fail." In the middle of his chest was a sword printed with a flame. The other person said, "Feel honored. Shadow bugs. Regarding the evolution of your body, you don't need to feel confused. Now after 3 times of transformation, you have temporarily transformed into a true creature of darkness." The other person raised his hand and asked Deborah, "What are you planning to do? You probably already understand the meaning of dark creatures, right?" The other Deborah looked at the black figure and replied, "Yes, there is a very special boundary that exists between the real world and the dream world. That is the shadow world. Dark creatures is the common name for monsters in this world." The black person replied, "That's right. In their normal state, dark creatures are not at all ferocious. Just like other living beings. Plankton live in the water, dancing in the dark, biting each other, mating and constantly reproducing." The standing black shadow and the sitting Deborah shadow fell to the ground like monsters running underground, they with the real world complementing each other. Only a few wizards can control them. But the effect is only to change the shape of the shadow or make the shadow creature escape from the shadow. That's all, but the shadow creature cannot leave the shadow world, just like the fish cannot leave the water. If it doesn't last for a while, it will die. Summoning or controlling this creature has no effect at all. As it gets older, no one will mention it anymore. The black man explained. However, the organization does not unlike those group of supernatural people with limited vision. Once you have discovered the benefits of the shadow world and the creatures of darkness, of course you will fully utilize it. You are now a powerful finished product. Harmony between human form and dark creatures. Deborah sat quietly listening to the other person's explanation. The world out there often calls mystical assassins. Then you are shadow assassins. Deborah said coldly, "For the organization to waste so much effort on me. I am truly extremely scared. May I ask what the organization needs me to do?" The black figure said, "Good thinking. This is a task assigned by superiors, specially assigned to the newly born shadow bugs, this time to carry out the mission. If you can successfully complete the mission, you will be qualified to know the true name of the organization." The first mission the girl received was an organization hoping to kill the black-scaled faceless man, Frank Wilde. Deborah thought of the name Wilde and was shocked. Deborah's foot even slipped slightly. The black man said, "Don't let your reputation be that guy's brutality is scary. For the organization he is just a dark mages. The level of destruction is not worth mentioning. Why even take action to eliminate him just because that guy really has only way to commit suicide?" The black man seemed to comfort Deborah. The tools trained for many years by the leader of the White Wolves. The helix he killed is somewhat different from yours. This is a complex type of control tool, more complicated. So the cost to create a plan is also higher. The blonde hare's head lying on the ground lifeless. Deborah stood looking, covering her mouth, and said, "It's true that hearing something is not as good as seeing. Always knew that Wilde. He was an extremely cruel person. But did not expect that he would be this cruel." The black person on the other side said through the eye attached to Deborah's body, "Even the executor after all these years of assassination and torture missions. You still can't stand this bloody scene?" Deborah asked again. "It's just a mission. No normal person is as perverted as Wilde." Deborah's butt appeared extremely plump. The other person said, "Back to the main topic. This mission seems to have an unexpected harvest." Deborah said, "Yes, at least I know what is he doing." Deborah on this side said to the person on the other side, "The organization doesn't need to search for Helix's whereabouts anymore." Deborah on this side looked at Helix's skeleton tied tightly by chains sinking inside black hole. Surrounded by strange purple and red auras, Deborah said, "It seems Wilde used Helix's body as a sacrifice. Summoning something unknown. The aura of this summon is too dangerous. The level of destruction is beyond the normal level. It's best for me not to get close for now." Deborah was still in the room, still using his eyes to slowly observe. In the girl's right eye came a voice. Said, "The recording for this place has been completed. The organization will send in someone to retrieve this summons later on. Now focus on carrying out the mission to assassinate Wilde." Deborah quickly turned into a black liquid. Peeked through the door. "Got it. Now I'm going to take action." That red eye lying on the ground opened its eyes wide and said, "He's about to pay for his arrogant behavior." Still on this side. As soon as Wilde sat down on the chair, that black shadow was crawling on the ground like a snake. Wilde said to Lin Ji, "So embarrassing. I've kept you waiting for a long time. Boss Lin, you can see that Lin Ji has been waiting for so long. Come on. The jar of candy has been eaten. Only a few pieces are left." Lin Ji smiled, "It's okay. How are you doing with the etiquette?" Wilde clenched his fists. His whole body sparkling with starlight said, "Thanks to your blessing." The ceremony was carried out very smoothly. "I believe that as soon as I can get the results. I'm really grateful for your suggestion." The cup of tea on the table was knocked. The black shadow slowly crawled in. Wilde didn't notice and was still saying, "Please rest assured, I will definitely spread this masterpiece out." Wilde's hand clenched tightly. "This book is truly a masterpiece. Perfect. No, this miracle work deserves to be studied by many people." Above the teacup, there was a small black hand pouring red liquid into the teacup. The red liquid mixed with the tea. The face of the black shadow clinging to the edge of the cup smiled. Thinking, success. The figure of a girl submerged in water stared at the two figures sitting and talking. Thinking, this poison, the tone of calamity, is considered as the nightmare of spellcasters. Even if you're a destructive tier dark wizard, there's no way that you will be able to withstand this. Dare to have the courage to sacrifice the tools of superiors who have been trained for many years like that. You are truly deaf and not afraid of guns. Deborah smiled, imagining the scene where Wilde drank tea and then spit. Next. We just need to witness the scene of Wilde after being poisoned. We can see the scene of the organization's enemies screaming in pain but unable to struggle. Just think about it and see. That's great. There's only one step left to reach the mission's success. Now, Wilde, even if the gods come down here, they can't save you. Lin Ji sat on this side, closing his eyes, holding a cup of steaming tea. He smiled and said, "You're not being polite to me. That's an exaggeration." Lin Ji thought to himself. Who doesn't want to be complimented? Old man Wilde knows how to treat people more and more. Okay. At this moment Lin Ji suddenly realized something. He said, "Wait, what was said earlier?" Lin Ji raised his voice and asked Wilde, "Old Wilde, don't you still want to go to the blood party?" Wilde was startled. Wilde's whole body felt like he had been struck by lightning. He hesitated to answer, "Yeah, me." Lin Ji sighed and said, "This is a bit dangerous for you. Let's do this." Lin Ji reached in bag to grab something. Lin Ji thought to herself, there are times when old people are stubborn and incomprehensible. To be able to trick old Wilde back here, I worked very hard, right? Lin Ji took it. He smiled at the coin in his hand and said in a slightly deep voice, "Some time ago I got the coin of destiny. The two contrasting sides represent luck and misfortune. Use it to spin a hexagram. If the results are not good, then don't go." Wilde's pupils widened in disbelief. He thought to himself, could this be the legendary coin of destiny? Wild smiled shyly, placing an arm above my heart. I heard the sound of my heart pounding. Lin Ji held the coin in her hand and smiled. Lin Ji flicked the coin high. The coin flashed with golden light. And the black shadow hiding at the side emerged. Eyes wide and bewildered. The coin rolled a few times in the air. The sound of a pounding heart rang out. Deborah was hiding on the side in fear, I think. This feeling is. In the middle of the coin. It was as if an eye suddenly came to life and was looking at me. What exactly is this feeling? The girl imagined that she was being seen through by that eye. As if she was being stared at by something that existed in the darkness. And as if she was being held by an invisible hand. Cut. Deborah imagined countless hands holding her and controlling her. Even her soul seemed to be taken over by this inconceivable feeling. Her instincts were screaming in emotion. The feeling of fear and oppression seemed to be warning me. Deborah could imagine a ferocious monster with countless scary eyes staring at her. With perfect hands pulled herself into the endless darkness. Quickly escape from here. Great danger is about to come. Deborah was scared. Her whole body trembled. Countless hands seemed to want to pull Deborah away. Deborah screamed loudly but didn't make a sound. She thought to herself, escape. Run away from here. Run away quickly. If you still don't get out of here. The other coin rolled a few times in the air. Then it fell and hit the edge of the cup. There was no time. The cup was hit by a coin and cracked. Then the teacup broke. The tea splashed. Deborah was hiding inside the teacup. Her left eyes wide open in fear, scared. After the tea fell, Deborah also fell. Deborah screamed loudly. Deborah was like a worm and was stared at by a shadow. If only Deborah was a real creature of darkness, then that the real world would not have any effect on her. If she were a fully humanoid creature, the apocalyptic sounds would only corrode her brain and would not cause any harm to her other parts. But unfortunately there is no price like Deborah following the water as if dissolved. She is a fused creature that is both affected by reality and at the same time because of the characteristics of a creature of darkness. Every part of her body is no different from a thinking organ. Deborah's whole body is like water in a cup of tea gradually dissolved. Deborah has no way to leave here anymore. Arms, legs. Deborah's whole body seemed to be split apart. Each part had left her body, assimilated herself and was swallowed. Then she would inanimately regenerate from the beginning, screaming in silence, for an endless period of time. From now on she can only keep company with the darkness and despair. The cycle of despair will continue to repeat over and over again. Even though this pain has no end. No end. Tea pouring down drop by drop. Deborah's figure turned black. The captain's eye also fell out of Deborah's eye. Blood threads fluttered away. There was a dark shadow standing under a room. The light shone in. The blood thread of the other eye slowly merged into the body of the black shadow. The shadow couldn't believe it and remained silent. The door was opened. 2 scientists came in and said, "Leader, we will your approval on the report on the new batch of shadow bugs." But the other 2 scientists saw the captain trembling, holding his head with his hands, accompanied by a cry of desperate pain. They quickly asked, "Captain, Captain, what's wrong with you?" The hand holding the skull. The black man seemed to be able to see the scene of Helix's desperate pain before dying. The black man screamed in intense pain. Black Hair asked, "What happened? Why did the captain start to go crazy like this?" Blonde Hair next to him reminded, "No. Don't come close to him. He's infected by the Tone of Calamity." Black Hair heard that and shouted, "How is that possible? Tone of Calamity belongs to high-level authority within the organization. Only the team leader can contact it. And the latest type has just been carried out by shadow bugs. Mission. Could it be that the shadow bugs betrayed?" The blonde said, "No. The nerves of the shadow bugs, when they go out to perform the mission, are already linked to the team leader's eyes. Once there is a mission, any intention to betray will be easily cut off and killed by the team leader. And shadow bugs cannot commit actions using Tone of Calamity to commit suicide. So that means she cannot completely commit suicide. Mission, but was also used by the opponent to take advantage of his tricks to kill him." An arm fell to the ground. Blood flowed out and the sound of people screaming, "No way." Just a destruction level target, it was impossible to detect the aura of shadow bugs. But she used the same method to clearly provoke the organization. If such a big thing happens, there must be some scary force behind it. The two people wearing white shirts quickly run out of the room. Quickly report the situation here to the superiors. If possible, then directly give the report to the superior to see. Okay, a certain captain died in a pool of blood. Eyes rolling out extremely horrifyingly. On this side, the gold coin jingled and fell to the ground. After spinning once, then turned to the eye that hasn't been marked by Lin Ji. Lin Ji and Wild sat facing each other. The broken glass was filled with tea. The two looked at each other very shyly. Lin Ji was bewildered. Then Lin Ji turned to stone. Lin Ji's face was covered in cold sweat. He thought to himself, how did things turn out like this? I just wanted to show off my bad luck to convince old Wild not to come to that blood party anymore. This is all over. Okay, old Wild won't be angry with me, will he? Lin Ji closed her eyes tightly, slightly opening one eye to peek at Wild's reaction across from her. Wild on the other side. His face darkened, his whole body exuding a strange blue-black aura. Staring at the broken teacup, Lin Ji thought to himself, that's it, look at old Wild's face like that. Surely you won't ask me to compensate you. Lin Ji turned to stone inside, and Wild's eyes stared at the broken teacup, water flowing on the ground. Wild bent down. Wild was startled and bewildered, looking at the glass of water spilled on the ground, thinking, it's not an illusion. Wild was extremely bewildered and stood silently looking at that puddle of water. Just now, the moment when the water splashed up. The vague shadow moved for a moment as if it was activated, but quickly disappeared and was nowhere to be seen. In the shadow there was something. With my current destructive level power, a supernatural creature that can appear under our eyelids without us detecting its presence. Except for the existence of the divine level, there are only a few types. Wild stood silently thinker, and this dark creature is just one of them. This type of creature is very little paid attention to, let alone ordinary supernatural people. Not even many professional scholars understand it. Clearly, I really have to thank my younger self for reading many books in the archives of some old masters. Young man with white hair, yellow shirt, handsome face holding across. This person is Wild. The appearance of 40 years ago. On the bookshelf, a book with green energy was hovering around. At that time, I only wanted to live up to my teacher's expectations, wanting to become a dark magician with professional qualities. Wild chose a book. Books with blue covers are on the shelf. Wild is standing floating in the middle of a large library of books. The cross is controlling the floating book, so no matter how rare or common the knowledge is, we can still read it all. Wild stands high up and uses it. My holy tree flipped open each page of the book. Wild said out of breath, I found it. The data of the dark world. So that's it. The so-called dark world is a very special gap that exists between reality and fantasy. Wild seemed to shrink down, standing on the book to study the material, and the supernatural creatures living in it are collectively called dark creatures. The ecosystem in there is unknown, and the external form is also unknown. There is no certain structure. The appearance can be as desired. Is that so? Because there is no way to leave the dark world. So even if it can be controlled for a short time, there is no way to advance. Can do detailed research. At that time, Wild read about half of the book and stopped taking notes, shouting the question, wait, are there just a few notes like that at the back? Young Wild's eyes matched the current Wild's eyes. Young Wild thought, no wonder, forcibly summoning this kind of monster really has no effect. Let's just make a note for now. Okay, maybe we should prioritize polishing the demon statue to give it to the teacher. Wild also thought in the present. Unexpectedly in this situation we will encounter something that even in the teacher's notes, there is no record of it. Copy the details. And with this fluctuation, there is also a mixture of some special toxins. Wild stood trembling looking at the glass of water. Someone used dark creatures to poison the glass of water. Hey. Luckily Uncle Lin came to visit him today and handle it in his own way. Otherwise even I would have been hit today. Wild raised his eyes to look at Lin Ji. No. Boss Lin must have known all this long ago. That's why he specially came to save me. And by the way, showed me the correct method of sacrifice and reminded me. Wild's trembling hand clenched tightly. And Lin Ji sitting on the other side was extremely startled and scared because of breaking someone's glass. Wild on this side didn't notice that feeling. He still thought, even though among those god-level powerhouses, there are few people as benevolent and generous as Boss Lin, There is no doubt that Boss Lin is the only god we should trust and follow all our lives. Is my father, my master, my light, my only salvation. Wild imagines himself as a son, in need of help from Master Lin Ji, can serve Master Lin. Being his servant, or being a lackey for him to command, is the happiest thing in life. Plus this time my old life has been saved by Boss Lin twice. Thanks for saving my life. Such a great kindness, such great virtue. Even if my Wild is crushed into 100 pieces, I will not hesitate to repay the favor. Wild trembled all over, his hand on his chest tightly clenched, his eyes looking at the sparkling Lin Ji. Damn. Just a basic language cannot express the gratitude that fills our hearts right now. But with Boss Lin's supernatural existence, he can definitely understand my current feelings. And Lin Ji on this side is extremely guilty, completely unaware of anything about his heart. Wild's respect. Lin Ji turned her face away. The hand holding the teacup was also shaking. He thought, it's gone. I feel like Wild seems to be staring at me. Isn't that right? Could it be the price of the teacup? Is that really expensive? It was true that Wild was staring at Lin Ji, but staring at Lin Ji with sparkling eyes of admiration. Lin Ji asked herself in her heart, what to do? If Wild tell me to compensate, how many books do I have to sell to fully compensate? At this time, Wild glanced towards the ground and asked in his heart. But saying this again and again is still a bit questionable. Shadow world darkness and the real world are not inherently compatible. How can dark creatures be affected by the toxins in this water? Wild took a deep breath. Besides, just now there was a slight smell of blood coming from the shadow. This is simply impossible. The shadow creature was created by the shadow and is not made of flesh and blood. How does it produce the smell of blood? Wild looked at the tea and began to evaluate and analyze in his heart. This is not according to common sense. Could it be that the enemy is not commanding the dark creatures but using the dark creatures to do synthetic experiments? Wild imagined the bloody scene with someone being forced to do experiments. If that's the case, then it's easy. As a dark mage with qualifications in the field of creation, the reason I don't test this kind of experiment is just one thing, is that I know very well how dangerous and brutal this synthetic beast is. Completely unsuitable for the elegant aesthetic of a dark magician. And the synthesizer who created this product clearly and completely never thought of this point. This synthetic product is completely lacking in biological rationality. It is estimated that other products are also wasteful and have a short shelf life. Wild could imagine humans turning into animal, losing humanity. It's ridiculous. Playing with life like that. The method is not at all cautious. Wild smiled, showing all his teeth. But in terms of creativity, it's not bad. Besides, if used in assassination, if this type of toy can be produced with efficiency, I'm afraid it will be very high. Wild can imagine the appearance of a crazy animal killing people and then being killed. In the past few years, there have been many strange cases of supernatural beings being assassinated for no reason. But no trace can be found now. So it was poisoned by this shadow synthetic creature. Wild thought of the person who was assassinated with blood all over his body. After death, his skin and flesh disappeared, leaving only the shadow skeleton. Wild falling to the ground. So this is the true identity of the so-called assassin of the night. In Wild's sleeve a sharp knife appeared. Wild knelt down softly. Wild placed the knife on the water we call ether condense. On that knife, red auras began to rise. Wild's whole body exuded a strange black aura. He rolled up his sleeves to reveal blue veins. For black magicians, sacrificial knives are props. It is indispensable that whether it is a sacrifice, an attack, a spell or other magic, it is necessary to analyze the remaining poison in the water. It is of course a suitable means. Wild's blue pupils flashed a blue aura as if he had seen through him, thinking, This ingredient seems to be the yin of the end of the day, known as a caster's nightmare. Wild can imagine drops of water falling into the human brain. The spellcaster represented by magicians and scholars would normally take advantage of the ether to enhance their intelligence. So the speed of operation and the sensitivity of the brain will also be many times greater than that of a normal superhuman. Wild can imagine when the other brain explodes and how much pain the caster will endure. This also makes sense if the caster who comes into contact with the sound of the end of the day will almost certainly die. Furthermore, due to the characteristics of the sound of the end of the day, before death, the poisoned person will suffer torment, and death will eventually come. Extremely unsightly. Just thinking about it made Wilde break out in a cold sweat and thought. What a cruel thing, to be able to do everything to this point. Needless to say, I am definitely a thorn in the side of the person who wants to kill me. Even though in terms of level of hatred towards me, I should be suspicious of that old wooden bat Joseph. But first of all, he doesn't have the brains to be able to do this again. Wilde thought of Joseph's figure. Second, with understanding, my opinion of him is that he absolutely will not use such sinister tricks to deal with me. With his kindness, he is probably only thinking about how to blow my head off with just a punch and I will be gone. Negative for many years. The only threat left. Wilde remembers Helix, who was just sacrificed, and Murphy, the owner of the coffin, only the guide to Helix and the White Wolves. The Red Spear is going to destroy Death and the use of the permanent organ and Helix's body to perform the sacrifice. Aren't those two organizations a fish caught in the net? They don't have the ability to organize such an assassination plan. Wilde knelt on the ground and couldn't stop thinking about the assassinations using similar methods in recent years. I'm probably not a rare target right now. The shadow, the black color on the ground, seemed to vaguely show the sword and flame logo behind this assassination is not simple. There must be some force secretly controlling all of this. Wilde clenched his fists. Teeth. Well, right now we don't know anything about the person behind the recent actions. It seems we need to be more cautious. Deborah was lying in pain in a puddle of water, unable to make a sound. Unfortunate assassin. That assassination was triggered by Boss Lin's destiny coin, which stimulated his own destiny. As a result, he directly immersed himself in it with the sound of the end of the day. Now it is estimated that he no longer has even a shred of reason left. If not, you can interrogate a bit. Wilde pulled back his knife, but if Boss Lin has already done so, it proves that he doesn't need to interrogate the opponent, which also means the current situation is still under Boss Lin's control. The scene where Lin Ji and Wilde, one sat in a chair and the other squatted. Extremely quiet. Lin Ji was still trembling because of the broken glass. Thinking, cough cough, well, this unexpected incident is not my fault. But at least subjectively, it cannot be completely counted as it's my fault. Who would have thought that I just flipped a coin and just happened to hit a teacup? And this teacup is so fragile that when hit by a coin, it broke directly into this. Lin Ji remembers his imagination at the beginning of tossing a coin, then advised Wilde, this time it's good, I just wanted to control a little force and then cleverly throw out the bad luck. Advise old Wilde not to go. Then there is the current situation of breaking the glass. As a result, this kind of mistake has occurred. But the shards that flew out after hitting it are definitely unaccountable. Moreover, I rarely go far to visit a guest's house. If I say I want to toss a coin to tell the fortune, I break someone's teacup. Lin Ji's head filled with cold sweat and sighed. This kind of thing really makes me feel embarrassed the more I think about it. Lin Ji stared at Wilde. More importantly, old Wilde's face is still unsightly up to now. So it feels like the next second he will grab my collar and ask if it was intentional or not. Careful. That's scary. Well, if I really can't repay him, I wonder if he'll forgive me if I send Moon to take care of Wilde for a while. And Moon on the other side was cleaning. Suddenly the wall next to the question mark looked at Moon. Lin Ji put his hand on his mouth and coughed a few times to relieve the tense atmosphere. Lin Ji stood up and smiled at Wilde and said, Old Wilde, this is just an unexpected coincidence. I didn't think it would appear like that. You also didn't expect it. Right, looks like this coin is quite new, I really feel unlucky. But Wilde didn't respond, the scene was strangely awkward. Lin Ji bent down to pick up the coin, he sighed, discard the result this time, let's cancel. Let's do it again. After picking up the coin, Lin Ji said again, that's right. We have to say it again. Lin Ji stood right in front of Wilde, behind him as if there was a dark demon shadow. Weird was staring. Your old friend Joseph found your tracks on 52nd Street. He's looking for you. Are you still going to keep avoiding him? Lin Ji took a handkerchief. Lao Lao coin thought to himself, well, I believe that his old friend's story is definitely more interesting. At least more interesting than breaking a cup of tea. Maybe. And Wilde, after hearing about Joseph, then he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, speaking in a low voice. Joseph. It's truly a name I haven't heard of for a long time. Wilde's figure smiled, reflecting on the knife. I don't avoid him. After all, they are old friends who have known each other for so many years and have always wanted to meet. But now is not the time. Wilde said, holding the sharp knife. No rush. Meeting again will be sooner or later. Well, if we have time, we'll meet again. I still have to settle that year's debt with that widow. Lin Ji on this side looked down at Wilde as he spoke and thought, as expected, Wilde is still angry at Joseph. Even though he's not, I know what caused the conflict between them in the beginning. But I guess it was a very serious matter, making old Wilde worry in his heart until now. Lin Ji closed her eyes tightly and clenched her hands, but it's important. The point is to successfully change the subject. Lin Ji used a handkerchief to wipe the water on the floor. The light shone down on where the two people were kneeling and said, "Old Wilde, it's been like this for many years. If there's a problem, you should let it go. Let's do it. The most important thing is that person is happy." Wilde stood up, turned around and said, "I see, you're right." Wilde looked at Lin Ji. "As long as he doesn't take the initiative to find me. I won't take the initiative to find him. But if he comes to me, I can't just sit around waiting to die." Wilde thinking of the Candela sword, the fruit. However, Boss Lin still doesn't want to lose a guest. After all, the means to summon Candela's heroic soul in the first place was Joseph's magic sword. But the cause of the conflict is not me. Quote, Wilde's snake eyes stared ahead as if seeing Joseph's silhouette. The mysterious tower has probably recognized my whereabouts. Maybe very soon I can fight with my old friend again once again. And Lin Ji secretly thought, well, the conflict between two old friends can't really be resolved with just a few words. But it's good that the topic has been changed. Lin Ji raised his voice and said, "That's right. You were at 52nd Street for that long after all." But before Lin Ji finished speaking, Wilde slammed his hand on the table, making Lin Ji startle as if struck by lightning. Wilde shouted loudly, "I'm really sorry to make you wait so long." Wilde raised his hand and pointed towards the scene at the end of the hallway, smiling, "I will show you my results. Absolutely not betray your expectations." Lin Ji looked towards the door over there. An incomprehensible sound. Behind the door in that room, the door slowly opened a crack. Blood was flowing freely in that pool of blood. A white figure appeared. A black aura hovering, a white shadow slowly from form then turned into a white animal with red eyes. The black figure dissipated, then turned into a wolf. In the middle of the night, it growled. The animal's snout bared its fierce teeth and the cry grew. The animal's claws broke the chains. The pillars in the house also broke. The silhouette of the other wolf exhaled a stream of white air and stood on the high step looking down. The wolf raised its head and ripped off the chain on its neck, accompanied by the wolf's howl coming from the room. Lin Ji sat in outside the clenched fist. A terrifying scream came from behind the door. Suddenly, a strange feeling appeared in Lin Ji's heart. He immediately turned his head to look back. Lin Ji was extremely startled. He made a bewildered expression thinking, "This sounds like the roar of some kind of wild animal. Just hearing it gives people goosebumps." Lin Ji's eyes flashed and looked towards the door. Old Wilde, what magical beast are you hiding behind that door?" The wolf's claws slowly poked out when the wolf's silhouette emerged. There was a black shadow staring at the wolf with red pupils identical to Lin Ji's rushing in. The wolf also had to stop and growled softly. After the door behind opened, the figure of the wolf stepped out. Lin Ji looked at it with his mouth open and exclaimed, "AAA." When he saw the figure of that animal in his eyes, his face turned red, blushing. This. Only see now, that wolf looks exactly like a white husky sitting over there with its tongue hanging out. Breathing unlearned. Lin Ji's eyes are bright. Her cheeks are red. Her mouth is wide open. Thinking, turns out she's a demolition expert. The dog world's driver. Famous idiot. Lin Ji stared at my dog. The other dog also looked at Lin Ji with cute eyes. My dog had extremely beautiful blue pupils. Lin Ji thought, husky, well, it's one of a trio of rickshaw pullers. So it can be said that it's truly a fierce beast that makes people scared. Lin Ji sat on the chair with a bright smile. Yeah. That's really the guy with the destructive power that everyone knows about. The other dog couldn't breathe and stuck out his tongue full of saliva. What the big mouth panted non-stop. The teeth were bright white and the tongue stuck out. The dog's tail was shaking, the huge tail waved and the paws moved and wanted to get up. Lin Ji looked towards Husky's eyes, light blue eyes filled with contemptuous ferocity but with a cute, silly look. Lin Ji just looked at the husky with a normal assessment. But in the husky's eyes, Lin Ji's figure was extremely scary. Lin Ji thought, everything seemed to want to speak. A strong desire to destroy everything in the house. These people were considered special goods in It's a Bunch of Magical Beasts. And this husky is over 1 meter tall and much bigger than a normal husky. His appearance is more like a wolf than a dog. And it looks quite scary. Lin Ji imagines shows a man and his beloved dog standing on top of a snowy mountain, but after all, the Siberian sled dog is an ancient dog breed. So it is not strange to look like a wolf. Even in many movies it appears wolves are also played by these huskies. Lin Ji sat cross-legged, eyes closed, smiling. Good. You look very lively, Mr. Wilde. Is this the result of your research on 52nd Street? Wilde placed his hand on his stomach and replied, that's right. That's the purpose of my coming to 52nd Street. Lin Ji thought to himself, it seems Boss Lin is quite satisfied with his creation this time. As expected, the more we interact, the closer I get to it. The more I feel its specialness. Wilde glanced at the husky. The beautiful beast in front of me is filled with power and its body is condensed with powerful spatial power. Only sees around its body. The husky's aura is a black and white aura surrounding it, like a small black hole containing a huge source of energy. There is no doubt that this is the real space wolf. Wilde can imagine the stream of light turned around like a giant tornado, is one of the most brutal and terrifying dream hunters in the dream beast world. That tornado seemed to materialize into an angry wolf. It often lurking in the distant past of reality, able to travel freely in endless time and space. Once caught even the smallest breath of breath, it will relentlessly pursue and hunt any creature that interested him. Wilde could imagine countless shadows being killed by the wolf, until the target died or somehow escaped from it. Then this endless hunt has just ended. Although it was born with the direct guidance of Elder Lin and through sacrifice, it is still the most advanced product I have ever successfully created. Wilde's smiling face and the husky's face were like two pieces of a puzzle. In addition, he has the same level as me. A real level of destruction. Wilde walked slowly towards the dog, although it's still in its newborn stage. Its abilities haven't been perfected yet, so it hasn't completely reached the level of destruction, but just continue to use blood, the meat of the superhuman, to nourish it. Sooner or later it will become a great assistant for me. The husky sat over there, sticking out his tongue, breathing heavily, waiting for his master to come. Wilde glanced at it. The snake's eyes flashed blue light, but now the most important thing is to make it submit and form a soul contract with it. Wilde came close to the husky. He raised his hands. Let it completely become my ghost. Wilde raised his hand and a red aura appeared. A formation in his palm. Now is the time to subdue. Wilde reached out to touch the husky's head and lips. Wilde mouthed, I declare your body belongs to me. My destiny and yours are connected. The husky's eyes lit up. Around Wilde there was a black aura hovering. Invisible snakes began sticking out his tongue as if threatening to surround the husky. Wilde recited the spell, I am the one who carries all the evil of this life. Also the place for you to stop in this world. You are a bastard animal. Miserable and lonely, stuck in a corner of time. Using greed to mold your soul. Cover your eyes with depravity to serve me. The husky trembled. Now accept me as your master. Offer up the chains that bind your soul. The soul becomes the ghost of. But before he finished speaking, an invisible chain appeared in Wilde's hand. The chain tied the husky's neck tightly. Wilde was startled in his heart. Wilde let out a loud, I haven't finished reading the contract spell yet. But I already signed the contract. Is it over? Not only that, the dangerous situation that I had predicted in advance never appeared. I didn't even have the slightest will to resist. How could this contract go so well? Right. Wilde looked at the chain in his hand with great confusion. But this beast was a little hot-tempered when it was first born. Then almost quickly fell into a very strange state of stupor. Quote, Wilde's eyes glanced slightly, or is it because Boss Lin is here? Now that the contract has been signed, I can feel the soul state of this beast even more clearly. The other husky stuck out his tongue. The person trembled. Wilde's soul and it had merged. Wilde could feel its feeling. The body trembled, the eyes stiffened, the feet wanted to lift up but didn't dare, the tail clamped tightly to the body. Everything are all saying it is extremely scared. Wilde could see the husky's eyes staring at Lin Ji, but the person who scared it is of course the person with the scariest existence here now, the hunter. The scary and brutal dream in the eyes of others is fearing the young man in front of him from the depths of his soul. Even feeling that if he comes even a little closer he will die and wants to run away immediately. Right away. Lin Ji's eyes on the other side were flashing red light. Lin Ji put her hand on her chin and thought, haha, this puppy looks so cute. I want to play with it so much. In her heart Lin Ji thought so, but when Lin Ji's face was thoughtful it was extremely scary. At this moment Wild clutched his sleeve, a voice in his heart. Wild sat down and stroked the husky's fur with his hand and said, it's okay. That's the god I worship. He won't do anything to you. If you obediently listen to him, he will probably do it. It's okay. The dog trembled as Wild hugged the dog, being able to make a newborn destruction level dream beast bow its head and obey without daring to resist. It seems that my judgment about Boss Lin being two people in one body was correct. What the boss did is truly my god. Lin Ji held a cup of tea in his hand, emitting steam. He had a very reassuring smile. Phew. That's okay. I'm relieved. It seems Joseph has misunderstood everything. Mr. Wild is actually staying on 52nd Street. To adopt a stray puppy. I said, how could an honest and gentle person like Mr. Wild be involved in illegal activities? Lin Ji can imagine the image of Wild standing under an umbrella in the rain and picking up the puppy abandoned. I guess this husky had someone to raise it before. But then something happened before the explosion on 52nd Street had a very wide area of impact. Perhaps something happened to its previous owner. Something was unlucky, so I couldn't raise it anymore. Then luckily the kind-hearted old Wild happened to meet it and decided to take it home to raise it. That must have happened like that. This must be true 80% already. Lin Ji imagined people with different shapes. Fat, thin, short. During this time, old Wild did not hesitate to contact and join the blood party to help those criminals to find the true meaning of life. And to take them to the bookstore to drink a sip of Lin Thi's delicious fresh chicken soup. Lin Ji can imagine Wild standing with his arms outstretched helping everyone. Lin Ji wiping away tears in the corner of his eye. Finally the life of this helpless old crippled man has gotten better. Lin Ji's eyes narrowed and looked at Wild. Lin Ji's current point of view is that Wild is holding the other husky and gently caressing it. Lin Ji thought, look at the way he gently strokes the puppy and the gentle smile on his face. You know he is feeling very happy right now. It's fun. Raising pets and having ideals is like starting a second youth again. The teacup was placed back on the table in the empty cup. Lin Ji thought, well, with the current situation, I'm a bit hesitant about whether I should stop Mr. Wild or not. It's very difficult for Mr. Wild to find a job. I want to do and overcome my inferiority complex about my appearance. I want to go out and socialize and advise people to do good deeds. Lin Ji touched the coin in his hand. If I stop him now it will be the same. I can't let him down. Lin Ji held the coin in his hand and sighed, I can't let him down. Lin Ji glanced at Wild and the dog standing over there. The dog was now facing Lin Ji and making a few noises. Lin Ji was a bit startled. His Wild called him, be good over here. The husky was a bit trembling and cried a few times. While Lin Ji was on this side as if lightning struck and silently thought. Wait, Mr. Wild can compete with a husky by himself. It's a dog that specializes in forcing its owner to walk. But Mr. Wild only needs to use the force of his wrist to force it to go. That's true. The older the ginger, the spicier it gets. No wonder he dared to go to the bookstore alone so early in the morning last time. Wild grabbed the husky's fur tightly, wanting to stop it from approaching. While Lin Ji was on this side staring at Wild, who was controlling husky, thought to himself. So you're so strong, old Wild, with this physical strength. If he only comes into contact with the blood party's marketing department, he'll probably be fine, right? I know for sure that I don't have to worry about protecting myself. At this time Wild patted the husky's head and called, Greedy, be quiet. Greedy was still trembling. Lin Ji on this side, her eyes flashing with light, thought to herself, oh, who can stand those weak and pitiful eyes? I have to teach him a few tricks to make him addicted. Lin Ji's hand is raised. Lin Ji's hand is about to touch Greedy's head. When Lin Ji's hand touches Greedy's head, Greedy is so scared that the color fades away. Greedy lies still on the ground, not daring to move, only daring to stick out his tongue. Lin Ji asked Wild, is it called Greedy? It sounds really cute. Wild replied, yes, I think that name suits it very well. Wild can imagine a wolf roaring in his heart, because he uses the souls of greedy people as sacrifices. This giant wolf also has a very greedy and bloodthirsty personality. So Greedy is a very suitable name for him. while Greedy was touched on the head by Lin Ji lying on the ground. He only dared to sit still and shake his tail, his tongue making a few weak sounds. From Greedy's perspective, Lin Ji's face was extremely scary. Lin Ji praised Greedy, "This puppy is really delicious!" Quote. Lin Ji touched his face with his finger and he rubbed it. His greedy eyes looked at Lin Ji. Lin Ji's cheeks smiled and he couldn't see the sky or moon, thinking, although there is still a bit of the idiot's personality and body looks a bit scary, but in reality it's much better than I imagined. So adorable. Lin Ji looked at Wild and smiled, "This puppy of yours is very suitable as a pet. You have such good eyes." Wild Bloom smiled and said, "Ha. You're joking." Lin Ji rubbed the Greedy's head, thinking, the only person who can call a destruction-level wolf a pet throughout this continent is probably the only one. Boss Lin. Lin Ji's mouth opened and said, "Greedy, good puppy." Lin Ji's raised hand scared Greedy to death. Lin Ji squatted down and raised his dirty hand with a friendly smile, "Let's shake hands." Greedy, now extremely scared but also angry. He thought in his heart, "Okay, that's a bit too much. Do you really think of me as a dog? I'm a wolf. Very ferocious. Extremely cruel. Try to move, I will hunt you down to the ends of the earth." Greedy's heart was screaming like that. But on the outside, Greedy was extremely gentle, from a ferocious wolf to a dog howling. With one touch of Lin Ji's hand, his face could now be described like this. The type that doesn't dare to say it. Cowardice in its blood, like a dog's life with no regrets. And Lin Ji, after the good dog shakes hands, hums a song of praise, so delicious. And Wild over here looking at the 3 dots. I always thought to myself, this is a wolf. But why did he end up in the same situation as a pet like this? Boss Lin is just happy. After a while, Lin Ji became more familiar with him. He raised his hand and said, "Shake hands." Wolf, I had to accept the fate of being a dog. Raised my hand with a woof sound. Lin Ji smiled with satisfaction and raised his hand. "Say, the other hand." Greedy reached out and put his hand on Lin Ji's hand and said, "Woof." Lin Ji asked him again to turn over. Greedy followed the woof sound of turning over. Lin Ji saw Greedy cooperating like that and thought to himself, "Subarashi, this dog is always gentle and fierce. And is very obedient, which shows that it has been trained. It really saves Mr. Wild a lot of effort to teach." Lin Ji smiled with all his teeth and slightly crooked eyes. Said, "The child is very obedient. He is indeed a smart child. His body is also very well developed. But he seems a bit fat. Look at this full belly. It's so hard." Sugary Greedy is a bunch of wolves even when being called fat. "All I can do is woof." Lin Ji said, "If you're this fat, one bite must be delicious." When Greedy heard that, he was startled and frightened. Greedy felt like he was struck by lightning and screamed in his heart, "Master." Wild on this side heard Greedy's cry for help but pretended not to see. Wild turned away and looked at the wall thinking, "Oh, this wall is so beautiful." Wild refused Greedy's cry for help. Greedy raised his head to look at Wild with eyes asking for help. Wild didn't look at him as if he didn't see the 3 dots. Wild secretly gave Greedy a like sign thinking, "No way in the boss Lin seems to really like you. So you try, just bear with it for a bit." Greedy's head is full of question marks. And Lin Ji on this side with eyes as bright as stars raised her hands like a dog catcher smiling, "He don't hide from the puppy, hey. My skills are a bit top notch. I'll make you tickle your tongue." Greedy saw Lin Ji's smiling figure and was scared to death. Greedy wanted to avoid Lin Ji. But Lin Ji said, "Don't resist. Resisting won't help. Just be obedient and enjoy it." Quote. Greedy's yelp came from Wild's house, scaring the birds. Greedy's house stuck out his tongue and panted. Lin Ji was stroking his fur. Lin Ji squatted down to wipe the sweat off his face. My forehead, thought to myself, "I'm so puffed up. It's been 3 years since I got to play with a pet. I'm finally satisfied." While Wild looked at the silent selection process, Lin Ji thought to himself, "Yeah, even though my body Huskies is quite big but probably very suitable for old people like old Wild. It's easier to protect him. It's just that it will cost a lot of food. After all, it's this big." At this time Lin Ji looking up at Wild. He asked, "By the way, Mr. Wild, the sacrifices you made just now, don't tell me they were all eaten by greedy people." "Okay," Greedy replied, "Yeah, it's all in Greedy's stomach." Lin Ji heard the 3 dots. Lin Ji imagined the husky biting and tearing the meat frantically. Lin Ji covered her face and sighed, thinking, "Old Wild. It's Old Wild. Why did you put meat in front of the husky?" Lin Ji said, "You spent so much effort to make those things." At this time, Wild said, "It's okay, so we can make them show their full value." Wild glanced behind the door and said, "We made that tribute just for Greedy." If Lin Ji saw being in a tragic situation in a room with human bones and wooden logs to support a broken house with blood flowing on the floor would probably scare you to death. Lin Ji asked, "Is that so?" Lin Ji thought to herself, "Phew. If he since Wild has become self-enlightened like that, I don't need to remind him of anything anymore." Lin Ji looked at Wild and assessed. "But I think it's true. Mr. Wild is a very calm person and is very thoughtful in everything he does. How could he not be fully prepared before adopting a husky? Surely he first learned about all the husky's behavioral habits before deciding to adopt it." Greedy lying on the ground, his tongue was dripping with saliva. And Lin Ji smiled brightly like stars and said, "That's good. I was just afraid you wouldn't get along with your new pet." Lin Ji reached out and pinched Greedy's cheek and said, "But it seems like you did. I'm fully prepared." Lin Ji stood up and her round butt was exposed. "Back to the main story. According to the information I have behind organizing this blood party is not simple." Lin Ji said to Wild, "What you've been exposed to is only a small part of it. If you absolutely have to go, then it's best to bring Greedy with you too." Wild replied, "I understand." Lin Ji sat in a chair with his hands on the table and said, "Also, if necessary, please ignore the conflict. You can contact Joseph so he can come help you. Recently he has also been investigating the blood feast with his disciples. It's mine." Lin Ji said, "If you need to ignore everything, you can contact Joseph so he can come and resolve it. Recently he is also investigating the blood feast with his disciple." Wild was silent when he heard Lin Ji speak. Wild's mouth opened slightly and he repeated in bewilderment, "Joseph." Lin Ji on this side thought to himself, as expected, Old Wild still has a lot of concerns about contacting Joseph. But they are friends together. I still have to give him some advice. Lin Ji's eyes were serious, according to what Old Wild told me before. The people who sent him the invitation are a bunch of idlers. All day just gathering. Lin Ji remembers that time Wild stood in the bookstore and told him, so in Old Wild's perception, the Blood Party is probably just a multi-level organization created by a group of people idle in society. Lin Ji remembered the words that Joseph told. But according to what Joseph said, this organization is an extremely dangerous criminal organization. Lin Ji remembered the time before when he called Claude to ask for help. When Claude was on a mission to fight and destroy, and when he called Claude before. His side was filled with screams and explosions. Completely, I could feel the level of danger at that moment. Lin Ji held the phone. Inside the phone came out Claude's commanding voice. Lin Ji thought of a group of people standing with flags waving to protest against society. This shows that this organization must have an outside organization to act as a cover. Or to develop new members. Lin Ji put his hand on his chin in thought, and there is also an armed force that is the core of the organization. Lin Ji's eyes narrowed. And why is Old Wild respected by the Blood Feast? Lin Ji imagined Wild, who had studied countless documents. In my opinion, they are probably paying attention to their status. Old Wild's language scholar. Maybe the other side needs a code breaker or an expert translator or something. Lin Ji pondered. If so, things would be much less dangerous. But we still have to act honestly. Careful. Greedy lay on the ground breathing heavily. Greedy reached out to touch Wild's leg. Wild sat down and touched Greedy. After a moment of silence, Wild closed his eyes and said, "I understand." Wild sat on the ground just touching Greedy, just saying, "Thank you for the reminder. I will act carefully." Wild thought to himself, Boss Lin is right. Every next step is full of danger. I have just joined the Blood Party and have already encountered assassinated by an assassin. And even almost fell into their trap. Wild thought of a dark shadow holding a knife with blood flowing out, about the assassin's background. I have two speculations. One is because I seduced Helix to do it. The sacrifice at the same time made the White Wolf and the Red Spear kill each other, making the person behind it feel like he had lost control. So he wanted to send someone to assassinate him. Wild thought of the man holding the sword and the child. A ferocious tiger could rush in to kill me, or maybe the Blood Party itself realized my intention of joining them, which could cause the entire organization to collapse and scatter. so I wanted to act first to avoid it. Danger later. Wild thought of himself being stabbed with a sword, and this fact or speculation do not contradict each other. Wild stood speechless. Wild imagined a group of people wearing black robes watching a large black shadow printed with the image of a sword and a red flame, because there is a very high possibility that this blood banquet is also a card in the hand of the person behind everything. After the event of the Wu Chi egg banquet, the blood quickly recovered, and this is a proof of this speculation. But in the end it is still just a speculation. Wild's eyes narrowed, seeing the figure sitting in the darkness of Lin Ji, but if Boss Lin said so, then my guess is correct. Wild's hand held tightly. Boss Lin kept reminding me not to be reckless, to act very carefully. Wild stood there greedy, then sat beside him trembling. Behind Wild it was like there was a light bulb covering him. The enemy's power is much stronger than I imagined. Assassinations like today are likely to happen again. I have to prepare carefully or I have to hide it. Wild thought in his heart the faces of Joseph and Claude, and the fact that Joseph started investigating the blood party shows that the tower is paying close attention to this organization. This will be a very good object for me to take advantage of. Wild smiled, so I understand all the hidden meanings in Boss Lin's words. Wild imagined Lin Ji poking a finger and stirring up a puddle. What Boss Lin means is to throw fire at someone else's house. Waiting for it to be destroyed, the blood party attracts followers. I will send news to the people of the tower to give them a headache. Wild can imagine the image of Claude and Lucy having a headache with the files until the tower and the blood party deliver it. I just sit back and enjoy the benefits. Wild is very good at imagining a group of people killing each other. Maybe we can even fish out the person behind it. Wild, as you can see the picture photo of Lin Ji covering her face and smiling. Wild stood trembling before her thoughts. How supernatural and dark is the intelligence that must be to come up with such an insidious, evil plan that kills 3 birds with 1 stone. Is a bird like this okay? That's right, Boss Lin, the evil lord. And Lin Ji over here drinking tea saw Wild looking at him. Lin Ji wondered. The question mark poked his head up. Wild clawed his greedy feathers. Far-sightedness and comprehensive perspective. I was so unconvinced of Boss Lin that I wanted to kneel and crawl on the ground. Moreover, I could see through all my thoughts. Wild recalled the feud between him and Joseph. The two were like 2 extremes. Half and half. Black, half white. My feud with Joseph is so deep-rooted. I'm always looking for a chance to reminisce about old times. But I almost missed the chance to take advantage of him like this. It's true that we have to eliminate hatred. Wild patted Greedy's head. Greedy shook his tail. Wild said, I will listen to your words. Bring Greedy too and will definitely act carefully. I won't disappoint you. Lin Ji smiled. That's good. Lin Ji put his hands on the chair and said, Old King. You know I'm a person who cherishes what I have. Of course I hope there are many new customers. But I don't want to lose my old friend. So no matter what, you must prioritize protecting your own safety. Lin Ji's shadow sitting on the chair fell on his face. His face was serious and his eyes were very attentive. Because after so many difficult years I was able to see you resurrected like this. So don't let me have to see you die again. Wild was a bit shocked. He put one hand in front of his chest and bowed his head to Lin Ji and said, I understand that will definitely not happen. Lin Ji took out his other coin and said, Okay, no need, don't have to be so serious. Lin Ji clutched his coin and said, Then I will toss the coin of destiny one more time. Before you leave to see what your luck will be like. Quote. Lin Ji smiled brightly and he thought to himself, Yes, I say I'm reading my luck. But in reality I'm secretly doing psychotherapy to help old Wild gain more confidence. No one fails in the same place twice. This time, I just need to pay a little more attention and I'll probably be fine. Right, Wild. On the outside, he smiled and said, Oh, you're happy, that's fine, but on the inside, he thought differently. Anyway, I'm used to the strange way Boss Lin acts. Wild recalled legend of the coin. According to the legend, the long-lost coin of destiny is an extremely terrifying magical tool that ordinary super products cannot control. According to records, it possesses the ability to change destiny and even extremely powerful cause and effect. So the conditions to activate it are also very strict. Wild recalled writing when others wanted to use the coin. If you want to use this coin, you must first spend a large amount of time preparing the altar to worship the goddess of luck. Then gather a large number of believers who are supernatural beings. Praise and pray together for a very long time to be able to activate it once. Wild imagined a group of people standing around. The burning blue flames clasped their hands together in prayer. Moreover, after activating the power, it will also consume a large amount of energy in the blink of an eye, possibly even causing the user to run out of energy. If the black number is still there, the user will go straight into a weakened state and even die on the spot. The price to pay for trying to interfere with destiny with mortal power is extremely simple and scary. Quote. It can be seen that if they fail, the person who built the altar may die. So up until now the use of lucky coins has always been considered taboo in this world. Wild look at Lin Ji, but not there's no one like you who sees it as a toy that can be tossed at any time. Wild thought of that legend and his whole body broke out in a cold sweat. Even a god level can't continuously activate it. Still so comfortable. You're actually the goddess of luck. Right. Lin Ji on this side was still humming the song when he flipped the coin. Lin Ji's eyes flashed. He caught the coin in midair. Lin Ji stared at the coin. Wild also waited with serious eyes, while Greedy sat on the ground and made a woof sound. Lin Ji raised his arm holding the coin for Wild to see. Then Lin Ji opened her hand to the side of the coin which was the marked side. Lin Ji smiled and said, "Oh my luck. Looks like this trip will be very smooth." Lin Ji's shadow and Wild slumped against the wall. The two of them looked at each other silently. Lin Ji said, "So I hope everything goes well, old Wild. It's time for me to go home. Then next time you come to the bookstore I will introduce you to my assistant, my new baby. You will definitely like her very much. She's very smart and cute." Wild said, "Oh, that's really worth looking forward to. And over here the feather broom is sweeping the dust on the bookcase." Moon said, "Boss, the main hall has been swept clean." But when Moon spoke, no one responded. Moon looked over and saw no boss at all. In Moon's eyes, she saw the empty chair over there and thought, "That's right, the boss went out to work. He's not in the shop now." The huge bookstore had sunlight pouring in. Moon thought to herself, with just one person missing, the store becomes this empty and quiet. Moon put her hand on her chest and thought, what is this feeling? I don't know, but it's so annoying. When will the boss come home? The blue-haired girl looked at the bouquet of roses held in front of her and shyly closed her eyes and said, "Sorry, I feel like we're not very suitable for each other. Although I really appreciate your kindness, I already have someone in my heart." "Okay, you are a good person. I believe you will definitely find a girl more suitable than me." The man with black hair and a slightly long face holding a bouquet of flowers sounded like he was struck by lightning. The other girl did not forget to wish Happy Man, "May I wish you to find your happiness soon." The radio sounds, "Hello listeners. Wish you a pleasant afternoon. This is Noken radio station. The next program is music played on demand. Tomorrow is Noken's traditional Valentine's Day. So today we will play the Autumn Flower Song. Wishing those of you who are in love will soon find your true love. Me, and welcome a bright new life." The blue-haired girl turned away and picked up the phone to call the person she secretly loved on the other side. "Is that white guy? Is it me? Do you want to?" Person the black-haired man, as if struck by lightning, dropped the bouquet of flowers to the ground and also knelt to the ground. The song on the radio rang out. "My life is like falling flower petals in the wind. The past is so far away that I cannot holding on. The beautiful moments left only a few fragile memories." The man knelt under the rain. The song was still echoing, lonely looking forward. The tears and smiles of the past and the future. "Hybrid," the man said in a sad voice, kneeling on the ground. "Why is that? I gave up everything but didn't get any love. What do I want? My hands are shaking and my heart hurts so much. God, why are you so cruel? What have I done wrong? Why do you treat me like that?" The man cried with tears in his eyes and nose running. "Mary," the voice of the radio was still echoing the song, "like an autumn flower I was torn apart and shattered in the end of days." The man cried with tears all over his face and opened his mouth wide screaming, "I really love you. Love you so much, but why do you treat me like that?" Roses fell. Rain also fell heavy and mixed with the man's tears. The song is still echoing, "Please don't shed any more tears. My loving heart. Tears don't suit you, my beloved." The man held tightly the shirt on my chest said, "Without you I don't know how to live, Mary. Mary, please let me come with you." The sky poured heavy rain. Thunder rumbled. The man knelt on the ground, listening to Do singing Dwang, "Even if no one knows I will still bloom brilliantly." Ah, I am the brilliant flower of autumn. Monday sunset sunset. Couples holding hands and giving each other loving looks. This is a pub, a place where people come to relieve their sorrows. The man sitting at the bar took a sip of beer. The beer was placed firmly on the table. The drunk man said, "Why are you here today? There are bird and mouse lovers everywhere. Right, this damn reality. It's obvious that normally we're so bored with each other all the time that we have to work another holiday to go out and tease the single dog." The man who was rejected on Valentine's Day was leaving. Drinking beer to relieve sadness is very angry. The man shouted, "Damn it. I'm not jealous at all. Another beer, please." The pink-haired girl serving on this side sighed. The man on this side with tears forming in the corners of his eyes. Thinking, this is the only place that can soothe my wounded soul. Now I have to go to work. Suffered a ton of hurt. Going back to the past a bit. The man who had just lost his love pushed the door open and walked in crying, hoo Mary hoo spent half a month's salary to buy flowers. In the end it was nothing, I can't get anything. My living expenses are in danger this month. I have to try to work overtime to earn back the money I lost. Maybe that will help me forget the painful feeling of being kicked out and just go to work. What kind of love can't be seen with the eyes? Can't have a heart. But when the man opened the door and walked in, he saw the scene before his eyes. The man was very confused. Only to see Lucy standing over there leaning against the chair. Behind Claude. And Claude was sitting leaning against the chair. Claude said with a sigh of relief, "Phew. I finally finished closing the document that the teacher gave me." Lucy stood behind the chair with her plump breasts right behind her. Claude stroked her hair and her slightly red face said, "You've worked hard today. Let me massage your shoulders to relieve your fatigue." "That's not it, Carolyn. I'm actually not that tired." Lucy's round chest, she said, "It's okay. When my shoulders get tired, you can squeeze them for me. My shoulders get tired easily too. Or do you not want me to help?" Claude's face turned red. His hair even bends into a heart shape, showing that he really likes someone. Claude quickly said, "I want to." Cough. "No thanks to you." Lucy's plump breasts were half hidden and half visible, while Claude was sitting on the chair. Her whole body was red. Lucy blinked one eye. Her face was red and said to Claude, Hi. Do you think my technique is good?" Claude was still blushing and replied, "Very comfortable." Right there. Lucy was massaging Claude's shoulders. Her tongue gently licked her lips. Her face was a bit red. She whispered the song in her heart. As she hugged Claude's shoulders, Claude's collar opened to reveal his white collarbone, but his skin was red. Claude was squeezed on the bone. His face turned red and screamed, "Kyaa collarbone no." Lucy laughed and said, Hee, I know another weakness of yours. But it seems like you don't have anything to do at the tower tomorrow." "Right," Claude said, "that's true, but I have a duty to works at the central police station." Lucy was angry. Claude was squeezed again. Claude blushed and shouted, "Ah! Don't poke my collarbone like that. I won't forget what I promised you!" Lucy was happy and said, "That's good. Then let's see how your performance is tomorrow." "You stupid knight." Claude stammered and said, "I'll try my best. But don't call. Is it okay for me to be like that?" Lucy hummed the song saying, "No." The man holding the bouquet of flowers witnessed the whole incident. The couple in front of him. The bouquet of roses fell to the ground. The man was dumbfounded, naughty. The man kicked the beer glass down on the table and shouted, "What's the point? Claude is only 2 years older than me. Why does he get to spend a whole day with the tower's #1 beauty? Bastard." The man was 21 years old this year and the man shouted, "If you two are like that, then let's go on a date." "Mom." The man sitting on the chair at the bar silently thought, "It's okay. I just think they're too noisy. My heart has been taken away by Mary. Maybe in this life I won't have any feelings anymore." A pair of feet wearing white socks slowly walked towards the man thinking, "In this cold world only a cold beer can warm my empty soul." The man softly I turned my head and glanced in my heart. Still thinking, maybe I will never love anyone again in this life. But when the man saw the waitress with a yellow ponytail carrying a beer pass by the mirror, the girl's face turned red. With blonde hair and a beautiful face wearing a waiter's outfit walked past the man. The red-faced man lowered his head and thought to himself, "That person is so beautiful. And on top of that, he smells good." At this moment the pink-haired waiter slammed the beer glass down on the table and said, "Here's your beer." The man said, "Ah, thank you." The man asked the counter owner, Boss, that girl is so beautiful. Why have I never seen her before? If possible, can you introduce me a little? The silver-haired boss said. The girl's name is Safi Rose. She's temporarily working at my place for a few days. She doesn't talk much about her personal information, so I don't really understand her. But I guess his way of communicating with people is also very good. In just a few days, I've already become close to the restaurant's regular customers. Rose was talking to a few customers when the boss said, if it wasn't for her saying that she only worked for a short time, I would have hired her. It's already a long-term job. And by the way, according to my observations, she still doesn't have a boyfriend. 1 second the man said he had given his heart to Mary. The next second he was thinking of flirting with the new girl. Oh, Rose. What a beautiful name. I feel like just hearing this name is like having a copy. The symphony is ringing in my ears. And she's still single. What a great opportunity to pursue true love. It's good to have hope. But let's say hello first. Right. The man raised his hand to call Rose back, my friend over there. Rose turned his head, but before he could say anything there was a loud bang in the shop. Everyone shouted in bewilderment, What? What is that? What's going on? Why did it suddenly explode? The man quickly covered his eyes and spoke with his mouth. Finally escaped the tough dogs at the central police station. The black giant holding an old woman in his arms shouted, all stand still and don't move. The old man standing in the counter brings all the money to me. Everyone outside also gives all the valuables. Whoever dares to report to the police will kill me first. Hurry up. I don't have time. Where is the time? Everyone in the shop ran around shouting. Everything was scattered. Robbery. Murder. Save me. I have no money, please forgive me. Ha hoo hoo. What are you crying for? Run away. The man standing in the chaos. 3 dots. The man covered his mouth thinking, this is annoying. Why did I meet this crazy guy? The lone criminal of the abnormal level, George Gabron. His strength is also normal, but the trouble is that he is not afraid to use force in front of the eyes of civilians. He is an extremely cunning person who chooses remote areas far from supernatural forces to carry out his acts and always takes a person with him. Hostage. Only to see Gabron holding the old woman in his other hand as if he were holding a worm, so normal police can't do anything. It's very difficult for the tower to organize personnel to arrest him. The problem is I'm just a tower desk employee with no combat experience at all. What should I do? Call my other colleagues or just ignore it? At this moment Gabron's eyes behind his glasses flashed and he said, oh. He saw a girl's butt and he was like a pervert and complimented, what a beautiful butt. I didn't expect that such a beautiful beauty would be hidden in a remote pub like this. He was talking about Rose. Rose was holding the serving tray in bewilderment. Gabron said, be good. Looks like I'm not alone tonight. And the man saw that and glanced at Rose. Damn that guy, I've got my eye on Miss Rose. Let's take a risk. The man was holding a glass of beer on the table and gulping it down. The red-faced man stood in front of Rose and shouted, that guy. Stop it quickly. What good is it about a strong man who bullies weaker people? Don't you feel ashamed? Don't think everyone will submit to your violence. Yes. If it's good then just aim at me. The extremely strong man pointed at himself and declared, today, as long as I'm still standing here, you won't be able to touch a single hair of mine. Before he could finish speaking, Gabri's powerful punch hit the man's face. The man said, this girl. The man was hit so hard that he fell to the ground and said, you have a big mouth. But you're still just a useless guy who can't take a hit. Rose looked at it in bewilderment. Rose shouted, Black, single quote. The pink-haired girl quickly walked towards Black, looked at the wooden bars on Black's body and asked, are you okay, Black? Everyone is bleeding so much. Please help. Black lay under a pile of wood with his bleeding head consoling him and saying, it's okay. It's just a skin wound. Black thought to himself, damn. I'm perfect. Absolutely not his opponent. At this rate Miss Rose will. Blood flowed from Black's head. Black, huh? A sound and the other Gabron slowly walked towards Rose sitting on the ground laughing, there's no one else causing trouble anymore. So let's continue. Tonight baby, you're mine, while Black on this side raised his trembling hand to his gradually blurry eyes. Thinking, why, Miss Rose knows my name.